Welcome back to Inhabit. Today we're going to wrap up this first portion of our Inhabit series, where we've really been laying some groundwork of what it is to develop a habit. What are some practical ways in which habits or routines happen in our lives? And so today we're going to look at a final law. You know, we've covered these different laws of habit formation, whether it's making it attractive, making it obvious, making it easy. Today we'll look at the idea of the reward piece, right? That we want it we want to make it satisfying. And what's interesting, again, you know, we've kind of been honest about this, that spiritual habits are not always immediate in their gratification. I mean, let's be real. Have you ever read scripture, tried to be in a discipline of reading scripture, and you read your assigned reading maybe for the day, and then you close the word and you go, I don't feel any different. I don't know that I even fully understood what I just read. I mean, we've all been there. However, what we also know about spiritual disciplines is that if we stick it out and we are in process over time, there's immense reward that comes over time. So, in the meantime, in the process, how does this law of making a habit more satisfying work itself out?
Yeah, and I think we see this in the Gospels over and over again as Jesus, what he was offering people with the kingdom of the heavens was something that was less tangible than the world around them. It was not something that was like immediate gratification. What he was trying to sell was in a way something very difficult to sell because it wasn't that quick hit of, oh, this feels good right now. And so one thing that he did that I think really helped make it attractive and satisfying for people in the moment was things like miracles, healing people who were sick so that they feel something right then, but then he can also talk to them about, well, what about your sin? Let's talk about that too. Let's talk about the spiritual matters. Well, we also see this with one of the main miracles featured in Jesus' life. All four Gospels record it. It's the feeding of the 5,000. And when Jesus feeds those people, there's this moment in his ministry where he's immensely popular. They're crowding all around him. He feels compassion for them. They're lacking food and they've come so far. And so he doesn't want to just send them away hungry. And so he says, hey, let's feed them. And perhaps you're familiar with the story of the loaves and the fishes that this one little boy brings in his sack lunch. And then Jesus blesses it and gives thanks for it and breaks the bread, breaks the fish, begins to hand it out. And they've got enough suddenly to feed all of these people. And they've got 12 baskets left over. And then, you know, they're weary at the end of this. And Jesus says to his disciples, you go on across the lake and I'll follow. And I'll dismiss the people. And so Jesus dismisses the people. And I think the real reason that he wanted to send them away is because he wanted some quiet time. So Jesus sends the people away, goes up on the mountain, has some quiet time. And then he crosses the lake again in miraculous fashion and walks across water. The next morning, people are looking for him again. And they're like, where is he? We know he didn't have a boat. So they go looking for Jesus and they find him across the lake and they are pursuing him again. They're saying, teach us more. We want to spend more time with you. Show us some more signs. And Jesus says, you know, what you're wanting is more of that bread that I gave you. But what you really need is the bread of life. And I am the bread of life. And so again, he's trying to give them something of immense value. But it may not feel like it. In the moment, they just want their stomachs to be full. Yeah. He wants their souls to be full. But it's worth noting that Jesus, even though his heart's desire was for their souls to be full, he was willing to give them some rewards on the front end to say, like, hey, this tastes good. Hey, it's good to follow me. And so sometimes it's okay for us to give ourselves something that makes those spiritual habits feel satisfying on the front end until we can build the habit and begin to experience the deeper reward that comes with them.
I love that. Yeah. So another way of kind of understanding that, we do this with our own kids a lot of times, right? That we know there's certain characteristics that are important for them to develop in their lives, that over time there's going to be an intrinsic value to. But to train them on the front end of that, we will attach it to an extrinsic reward.
Sticker charts.
Sticker charts.
Popsicles.
Gummy bears. I remember that with potty training.
Yeah.
It was a gummy bear reward for our kids. That kind of thing. And so we're not above that, at all. And in fact, I think if it's key probably to us experiencing reward for something that may not instantaneously yield that instant gratification.
Exactly.
So one way to do that is to actually track habit success.
Yep.
That as we kind of complete a rhythm or a habit for the day, we can actually visually mark that. And there's a couple different ways to do that. One is in a resource that we are providing you with today, which is a journal that kind of can be a note, a place for you to collect notes, to talk and develop some things together as a group over this series, but it also has a habit tracker provided in there for you.
So there's all kinds of habit trackers out there. You can even find apps that are habit trackers. So
we'll recommend one of those in our resource center also.
Sure. Yep. So our staff actually did this. Like the very first spiritual habit that we tried to develop as a staff back in, what was that, January, February, somewhere in there. We were like, we're going to try this. And at first we weren't seeing a whole lot of success. So we were like, we're going to track it and we're going to attach a reward to it.
Right.
Yep. So
we had collectively, our community decided we were going to really try to carve out the habit of kneeling 3 times a day in prayer.
Yep.
And, so we actually downloaded a habit tracker app that was free, and we would track our success in that, and then at our weekly staff meeting we would reveal our
everyone would have to get real about how many times they kneeled and prayed that week.
That's right. But we also then had set a goal, like a collective goal, that if there's 200, if we all have 217 or whatever the number was, then we are going to tie that to an extrinsic reward. And it took us a couple of weeks actually to get there. I think we fell shy by like 1 or 2 the first week, which, you start to feel pretty bad about yourself when you realize I could have put us over the top, but it was all in good positive accountability.
And we're kind of competitive, so we were like, we gotta get
That's
this.
right.
We gotta get the ice cream.
The ice cream, the Amish Cheese House ice cream. It's a great creamery.
Yep.
And
it might be just the reward you need for a habit you're wanting to start.
That's right. So anyways, we say this to say don't shy away even from a spiritual discipline. There might be an idea that it's less holy, if you're tying it to a tangible reward. But remember, it's about the process. And over time, these spiritual habits will yield, like you're saying, a soul satisfaction or
an eternal reward, right?
Right. So. But as we're getting started, making it rewarding in something that is a little more instantaneous, a little more felt, is just a helpful tool.
Yeah, it's just a tool to get you where you're wanting to go. Because sometimes we have to drag ourselves along. We know what we want to do and what we ought to do, but it's hard to make ourselves get in a routine of doing it. And so this is just one of those ways you can do that. Unfortunately, there's some habits that are very easy to fall into. And so we've been talking about, reversing these laws. And so one of this is our fourth rule, our fourth law of making it satisfying. We can turn that around and make it unsatisfying. And that sometimes is a little bit hard to think through how do I do that, because obviously it is satisfying. That's why I've been doing it. It's satisfying something, even if it's a temporary thing and causing long-term problems. So one of the suggestions for that is that, kind of like the accountability we talked about on a positive habit that we were trying to form, you can do that and use accountability with something that you're trying to get rid of. And that makes it a lot less attractive when you know someone else is going to know about it, or when you even, he gives examples in Atomic Habits of like making a contract with someone and saying, if I don't, or if I do this, or if I don't do this, then this results. This is the consequence that I'm putting on myself, and you're going to hold me accountable to it. And so, it could be for an OSU fan that you have to wear an OU jersey if you don't get it right. You've made it unattractive then, like, oh, I don't want to go there, so I'm going to get this, weeded out of my life, or whatever the case is. So it's a useful tool for forming these habits, just like all these other laws. And so maybe we could take one more breeze through what the 4 steps of a habit are and the 4 laws that go with them, and talk about how repeating it is so valuable. So
yeah, it starts with a cue, right? And that's tied to the law of making something obvious. How do we keep it out in the forefront?
Yeah, and then that creates a craving. And so we've got to think about, how do we make it attractive? And so specifically in our context, we talked about the importance of a community to help make something attractive.
And then that creates a response when something is attractive. When there's a craving, we respond to that. It's really kind of the act itself. And so in that way, we want to make that as easy as possible. We want to remove the obstacles that would prevent us from following through.
Yep. And then lastly, there's the reward aspect of a habit forming in your life. And so we want to make it satisfying so that we'll do it again. And we'll want to do it again and do it again. And that's where the key is to forming what a habit is. It's something that you do again and again. It's a process. And so the key to a habit is the repetitions. It's not really a habit until you've repeated it long enough that it's become almost automatic. And so you've got a handout about that shows, like, there's this, as you repeat, it's like a long time where you feel like it's just not happening. You're just not getting. It's still hard in some sense, like to remember. Like, it's just not coming automatically. But then at some point, you've repeated it enough times, and it does, and it sticks.
It becomes almost natural. And that's part of the idea of consistency. And this almost kind of brings us full circle back to week 1 of this part of our Inhabit series about the process, right, over perfection. And so the idea that there's going to be days where on our habit tracker we missed that. And then that's where we decide, okay, well, do we just drop out altogether, or do we keep going? The hope
I'm a failure.
Right. But no, it's the process. It's not the perfection. And so the result over time will be repeated success in that, even if there's a gap there, right? It's the continuing
Get back on it. Yep.
Now, there is an idea here about not breaking the chain. So let's say we have a bad day and we miss our spiritual formational habit that we're working on.
That much more important to do it the next day.
Right. Don't get discouraged and think, well, I'm a failure, I'm a loser, my mission group is going to, tar and feather me.
We're not going to get ice cream because of me.
Right. Right.
It's my fault.
That's not a reward. I have to go and confess now. But the idea is really motivate. Let that motivate you to get on the next day, because really there is some science behind this that says, 2 days does kind of create a break sometimes that's harder to rebound from. But if you just get back on the next day and try not to break that chain, you're in the process still. Yeah. You're in the flow.
So really give yourself the grace that God is giving you. As we go through this spiritual habit, formational habit journey, like, there's grace.
I love that.
There's forgiveness. Right? So don't get caught up in like, oh, I missed a day or whatever, and beat yourself up over it. No, there's grace that allows you to miss that day and get the next one. So we got this. I'm really looking forward to starting the journey next week.